Welcome back to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is Relentless Daring, live on podbean.com. Apparently the audio's being a little choppy tonight. It's coming from Scuba, Steve, who's here in the chat room, letting me know. Again, internet, when you live in the country, you really can't help it too much. I'm just doing the best I can here, but it be what it be. For some reason, it's not letting me see who all is in the chat room tonight. It's being odd. So, before I get into the show, I'd just like to say that today was a good day. So, with all the COVID-19 stuff been going around, one of the things people have been having problems with is a spike in meat prices. And that's not necessarily because of a shortage or an increased demand. It's just the processing plants have been running at a decreased volume. I wish Tony says more people contributed to the donations. I get better internet. It's either DSL or I get satellite internet, and I'm not going to put that big of a burden on all of y'all for satellite internet just for my little itty-bitty show. But, it is what it is. But, so, as I was saying, with the spikes in meat prices today, or been going on, today I did something kind of fun. I butchered a cow. If you've never butchered a cow, it's very labor intensive. And of course, this has been a 2-week process. So, was it Memorial Day? We went out and we slaughtered said cow, which that was interesting. I've never thought I'd have cow internal organ identification day, but it was cool to do. Obviously kill it, string it up from the bucket of a tractor, and then peel it out and all that. And then a local veterinarian has a walk-in cooler that he stores a lot of his medicines and stuff in it, so he gave us permission to hang the beef. And Tony says, yeah, we're going to let PETA know, mainly because we like to mess with them and we haven't received the fruits of that slaughter. Yeah. Oh, I have the fruits of that slaughter. They are received, and they are chilling, setting in the in my neighbor's deep freeze where he actually has room, because we don't have room in our deep freezer here. So we got a quarter of a cow, and it's about 50, 60 pounds of beef, or ground beef, and then some steaks and some roast, all the good stuff. Scuba Steve says, people eating tasty animals. Yes, yes indeed. I love the tasty animals. But if you're on Twitter, following me at Real Tyler Morgan over there, you would have seen the beef hanging in the cooler, 1 quarter of the beef on the kitchen counter where we actually did the butchering today, and then the pile of bones that used to be Bessie. No, they were not left there. That was in their backyard. We actually loaded that into the bucket of the tractor and hauled it off into the woods for the coyotes to gnaw on. So, and that's part of being self-sufficient. All the neighborhood dogs are going crazy, and so now it's driving my dog crazy in the house. My poor wife is chasing a 80-pound mastiff through the house, trying to get her to calm down. She thinks it's obnoxious. I think it provides content to the show. I think it's great being able to be self-sufficient. I mean, yeah, a quarter of a beef, we spent $200. And, I did the math. That's like, for the amount of meat we got, it was like $2.80 a pound. And considering ground beef here in Missouri is, if you go to the cheapest place you can find it, running like $5 a pound, I'll take that for a win. Well, fortunately, if you're listening live, apparently there's some audio issues, but I am recording it. I'm looking at the recording software right now. It is running, so should not be any issues loading this up if you're not getting all of the live show. Oh, Alyssa's only getting every other word, and she's crying actual tears. I am so sorry. But anyways, with all the shenanigans going on with COVID-19 and all the riots and protests, the world is losing its damn mind. So there's video of a black cop in Austin, Texas, walking through a crowd of limp-wristed, upper middle class, white, liberal, yuppie college students, and they're throwing crap at him, calling him a racist. Like, wait, white people calling the black guy racist because he's a cop? Come on now. It doesn't make any sense. And in the world of social media, I love how things go completely off the rails for people at times. For instance, I was asked a couple days ago about if I'm going to continue to go bald for BLM. If you've been seeing this on social media, chicks shaving their head with the hashtag bald for BLM. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you an epic trolling courtesy of 4chan. Yes, 4chan, the wonderful people who told us all that the OK hand gesture is a white power hand gesture. Yes, that's right. An article here from Summit News, hashtag Go Bald for BLM trends on Twitter after 4chan troll. Some women tricked into shaving their heads to show solidarity with Black Lives Matters. Alyssa says she will not shave her head for no MF. That's correct. I only shave my head just because, well, it's been like 90 degrees outside, and my hair gets nasty, and I never get off work in time to make it to a barber shop. So it's just easier to take, get a handful of shaving cream and a Bic and go to town. Tony says, asking Alyssa why she won't shave her head because me and some other people do. All right. So, with white women more desperate for attention than ever before, some of them followed through with the hashtag Go Bald for BLM challenge, shaving their heads for Black Lives Matter, despite the fact the entire stunt appears to have been the result of a 4chan troll. And Scuba Steve is commenting, saying that the pictures they used to start it was from a girl who shaved her head back in 2012, in solidarity with a friend going through cancer. Go Bald for BLM has been trending on Twitter all day, and while much of the hashtag is dominated by people questioning its authenticity, some women do appear to have fallen for it. Quote, "The only thing I care about today, tomorrow, and in the future is hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag Go Bald for BLM," tweeted one woman alongside a picture of her shaved head. Several other women post images of themselves with shaved heads to show solidarity for BLM. However, the hashtag appears to have been a stunt cooked up by 4chan trolls. Which is really weird because I have a friend who, he essentially lives on 4chan and he had to leave it because even 4chan got completely woke for a while. And so it devolved into 8chan, which it's about the same. A bunch of trolls feeding each other. Kim says, these women are making fools of themselves. Tony says, because skinheads have totally historically supported black people and minorities. Totally. I agree 100%. Hopefully they don't realize that what they're trying to replicate with the shaved heads. Because I would absolutely hate, for them to go, ooh, that's bad. Anyways, a post on the Notorious website states, quote, go bald for BLM trending on Twitter and Instagram. The idea is to get women, particularly white women, to shave their heads for BLM. Guilt them into getting rid of their straight white hair to show solidarity with black women. It's, according to a post on the 4chans. 4chan has successfully trolled leftists into believing all manner of absurd things in the past, including introducing the idea that the OK hand sign was code for white supremacist. Which, again, this, as I said earlier, the fact that people will believe all this, it just goes to show that they're just looking for attention, because they want to white knight. And just remember, there's nothing more racist than white condescension and white knighting, because obviously black people are unable to fend for themselves. Alyssa says, I can't even be a sassy a-hole because I have no idea what is being said. What's the point of having new ears? Tyler's going to break the internet. I'm sorry I'm breaking the internet. Again, if you all have to go back and check out the actual podcast, again, looking at the recording software, it is still running. So you'll at least get an unbroken podcast at the end of the night, as opposed to last week and a couple weeks ago when my recording software decided to say screw me and take a nap and not actually record anything. So, and then, and all of this, the left is doing the thing where they eat their own. Tony's dipping out because of the audio. The podcast should be a lot better. Again, it's clean audio as opposed to what's going through the interwebs right now, so I apologize. So, as far as the left eating its own is going, it's also turning into cops turning on politicians, politicians turning on cops, people who support leftist politicians turning on leftist politicians. For instance, police unions are turning on Joe Biden. And, Joe Biden is traditionally the pro-union, pro-law enforcement. I mean, he tried pushing the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights back in the 90s after the Rodney King beating because, we have to protect the cops. We don't need our cops getting, dragged through the mud just because someone says they got beat by the cops. Even though 4 cops were on video using their flashlights to beat the ever-loving life out of a black man. But, heaven forbid we allow cops to go through due process. So now, like I said, this is a Politico article. Shocker, I'm going with Politico on this because, well, it's Politico. And, oh my gosh. And now the smallest dog in the house is losing her stinking mind because someone came in the front door. Anyways, Politico, police groups break with Biden. Quote, police are shaking their heads because he used to be a stand-up guy who backed law enforcement, end quote, one top official said. From the article, Joe Biden has long prided himself on being a union-friendly Democrat with a good relationship with rank-and-file cops. But Biden's call for more national policing reforms and oversight in the wake of the death of George Floyd, and the perception that he hasn't shown enough solidarity with law enforcement amid the ensuing nationwide protests and unrest have created a fissure with law enforcement groups, leaving many who once supported him frustrated by what they regard as political posturing by their one-time ally. Quote, clearly, he's made a lot of changes the way candidates do during the primary process. But he kept moving left and fell off the deep end, end quote, said Bill Johnson, executive director of the National Association of Police Organizations, the umbrella organization for Police Benevolent Associations chapters. Oh my God, that's a mouth. Can you imagine the business card? Quote, for Joe Biden, police are shaking their heads because he used to be a stand-up guy and backed law enforcement, end quote, Johnson said. But it seems in his old age, for whatever reason, he's writing a sad final chapter when it comes to supporting law enforcement, end quote. As the two presidential candidates confront one of the most racially combustible moments in recent history, they're taking decidedly different tacks. President Donald Trump has issued a full-throated call to restore law and order, even threatening military action to beat back violent protests. Biden has tiptoed around the defense of law enforcement, focusing instead on the need for reforms amid deep-seated racial disparities plaguing the nation. And this kind of goes back into what I was saying last week and things I've been holding consistent with for the past several years, that it's not necessarily a racist cops need to be reformed thing. It is a bad policing thing. In the military, there's been issue over the years in recent years of promoting people too fast into leadership roles, and you get soldiers without leadership experience who, they just kind of fast track their way, and suddenly they're a sergeant, staff sergeant, or even on rare occasion, a sergeant first class, who they don't have the required time and grade, time and service, nor have they had good they haven't had good mentors who can show them what's right and wrong. And the same thing happens with these cops. Police have to expand departments because there's a demand from the community. We need more cops. And so when they do, kind of like the Army did during the surge, they relax standards and they just start getting bodies to fill roles. And that's not saying it's a bad thing. However, some people lack the emotional intelligence, so to speak, to be able to handle themselves in bad situations. That Matt Walsh was released he tweeted out the video of Tony Tempa, who was killed in a similar manner 4 years ago in Dallas because he was having a psychiatric break. He knew he was having a psychiatric break, and he called 911 to get help so he wouldn't hurt himself or anyone else. He realized he was having problems, and he tried to take care of it. And the cops handcuffed him, pinned him down on the ground onto his face, and pretty much crushed the life out of him by kneeling on his back and laughing and joking the entire time. Again, and Tony Tempa was not black. Tony Tempa was white. I mean, so were those cops racist because they hated the white guy so much? And the fact of the matter is, any given year, if you total up the number of minorities killed during police interactions and police confrontations, armed or unarmed, just straight numbers. If you add up all the minorities who are killed by cops, that's usually what it takes to equal the number of white people killed by cops. I mean, I haven't run the numbers to see if it's, representative of demographic groups. Well, 70 some percent of the population is white, so, and then it correlates to 70% of the 70% of the people killed by cops are white, and 13 African American, 13 African American, so on. So I haven't done that. It's an interesting concept that, so if that many more people who are not a minority are being killed by cops, what is the issue then? It can't be, well, I'm not going to say it can't be a race issue, because there's always going to be racist a-holes everywhere you go, every walk of life. I have known people in the military who I made an active effort to try to avoid because they were racist dicks. And I had no need for that in my life. I had a buddy who, all's well and good, all's well and good. Every now and then he'd make a joke. He's like, it's a joke. Then the jokes be more often, and you go, okay, this is really uncomfortable. Then suddenly you're just like, dude, I don't know where your heart is. I don't know how you actually feel on this subject, but Jesus told his disciples, "You shall know them by their fruits." And right now, your fruits are awful sour when it comes to that issue of race. You can just kind of stay over in your world. I'm going to stay over here, and I'm not going to hang out with you anymore because you're dragging me down. And everyone eventually confronts someone like that in their life. At some point, you have to go, I can't have this kind of negativity in my life. I can't have someone who insert random racial group. I can't have someone who is bothered by that and constantly just makes it a thing in their life. I can't. And if you don't call someone out on it, you're not, maybe they don't realize it. Maybe it's subconscious. I don't know. Maybe they're fully aware and they don't give a rat's behind, and they're just going to do it anyways. That's just who they are, and by God, you don't like it, don't hang out with them. And if that's the case, don't hang out with them. But, there's so many people I've seen on social media calling Chauvin, whatever the guy's name is, the cop who killed George Floyd, well, he's just a racist cop. He killed him because he was black. Like, well, okay. Do you have evidence that he was killed because he was black? Because I haven't seen that. I think it's just bad policing and bad police procedure. And wanting reform for cops to be able to be like, train them to de-escalate situations, which, people trying to demonize George Floyd because, he was not the greatest human being in the world, but he didn't deserve to, be smothered to death in the street. But, but people's trying to like, oh my God, he deserved what he got because, he was trying to hide drugs and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it doesn't matter what he was or was not doing. I mean, unless he was engaged in an active struggle, actually trying to do, bodily harm to any of those police officers, he should not have been killed. Period. End of story. And then I want to before I go take my little break here, I'm going to go put on my Alex Jones tinfoil hat for a second, because an update to that situation, he's been arrested. He was originally charged with third-degree murder and another manslaughter charge. Well, the Attorney General of Minnesota, the wonderful, wonderful human being that is former Congressman Keith Ellison, well, he upped the charges to second-degree murder. Now, I don't have the definition of second-degree murder for the state of Minnesota and what constitutes that, and therefore an idea of what the burden of proof that the prosecution has to make. But I'm going to presume that there's more of a, well, I was doing this, and I was doing X, Y, and Z action, and it just made sense to kill them at that point. I said, don't quote me as that's what second-degree murder is, because I don't, again, it varies from state to state. Generally, it's the same thing, and I just don't have that info right on hand. But if, the beginnings of intent are the burden of proof, if they do not include all lesser included charges, which was a couple years ago, there was a cop from the University of Cincinnati who was engaged in a traffic stop where, don't know the precise happenings, but it basically ended with him in the window of the person's car trying to put the car into park and take the keys out of the ignition. And in the cop's mind, he thought the driver, who was black, was going to try to run him into the concrete barriers in the middle of the road, and he pulled out his gun and shot him. He was charged, I think, second-degree murder and all lesser included charges. This cop was tried 3 times and ended up in a hung jury 3 times. And I think the case could be made that if they really, really pushed to go, get the jury to go with manslaughter, I think they could have gotten a conviction. But the prosecutors in Cincinnati eventually, after 3 times of ending up with a hung jury, they brought the family of the victim in and just laid it out, and it's like, we know you want justice for your son, and we have tried 3 times, but we're just going to let you know we are dropping the charges against him because we'll never get a conviction. And that's a case of the justice wasn't denied by the justice system as far as prosecutors, police, and all that goes. We use jury trials, and jury trials are not necessarily clean. They don't necessarily go the way you want them to. And so, going back to George Floyd with his charges being bumped to second-degree murder. Like I said, this is kind of tinfoil hatty, Alex Jones-ish. But what if the point is you make it a harder burden of proof on the prosecution, and because they can't meet that burden of proof in a jury trial, that cop is acquitted. And because he's been acquitted of a murder, the other 3 charges the other charges against the other 3 officers, aiding and abetting a murder, well, legally a murder didn't happen. So can they still be charged with aiding and abetting? And maybe the charges get dropped, or they get acquitted on their charges. And then suddenly you have the justice system looking like it's unfairly skewed in favor of police, and it sparks off more riots and carrying on. And and the peaceful protests I don't mind. I have a friend who took her daughter to a protest in San Antonio several days ago, and you know what? They got there early, and the cops were there. Cops addressed the crowd, said, "Hey, we're here because we support your right to, free speech and to assembly. We're here to protect you. If anyone tries to start anything, we're going to break it up." And the cops passed out water to people as it got hot. There was a Trump rally across the way that within earshot of each other. Yeah, there was a couple a-holes in that crowd yelling at the Black Lives Matter protest, and a couple passers-by who were shouting profanities at him. But all in all, it went well. It went smoothly. I support that. I do believe there's changes in policing that needs to be made, not necessarily because, one race is unfairly targeted over another. Just, you can't have cops who become overly militarized. I remember being in Afghanistan with blown up bad guys that we escorted to a combat support hospital because at the point we found them, they became, enemy prisoners of war, and we were duty bound by the Geneva Conventions, even though Afghanistan is not a signing member, to treat their war wounded. And we did with dignity. Why can't cops figure out, okay, we have him in handcuffs, he appears to be having a panic attack, and we can't get him in the car. Let's just set him down and try to get him to calm down, or maybe even get a medical team out here to give him a sedative so we can get him in the car and take him in for booking. It's not a hard concept. Or maybe I'm just thinking about it way too naively, with too much naivete. I don't know. But I want to take a quick break. Be right back after this. This is Tyler from Relentless Daring, and I am launching the brand new RelentlessDaring.com merch shop. Instead of having to go to a third-party vendor, now you can do everything right there at RelentlessDaring.com. If you want to buy merch, go to RelentlessDaring.com/shop, and there you can get hats, you can get t-shirts, you can get hoodies, you can get coffee cups, you can get stickers. Go there today to show your love for the Relentless Daring podcast. And as always, stay relentless. All right, coming back off the break. So I was talking earlier about, with people turning on, the police unions turning on Biden because Biden, who was very, let's take an disproportionate number of black people and put them in jail with this crime bill, and let's try to protect cops from prosecution with the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. And you have protesters turning on notorious leftists. Town Hall had an article. Here's how a Brooklyn crowd welcomed Mayor de Blasio to George Floyd vigil. Mayor Warren Wilhelm III, or Bill de Blasio to his friends, was tasked with managing two crises at once, and he's failed on both counts. As late as March, the mayor was encouraging New Yorkers to go out to the movies and downplaying the threat of the coronavirus. Then, once he became more draconian about the health crisis, he, for some reason, singled out the Jewish community for violating his stay-at-home orders. Then came the riots in response to the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd. New York has been complete mayhem for the past couple weeks as rioters and looters uproot the city. There are hardly any establishments that haven't been destroyed, and on one particularly distressing evening, protesters ran over police officers. President Trump called out the disorder and urged both the mayor and Governor Andrew Cuomo to send in the National Guard. They have yet to follow that advice. Now, having summarized the mayor's behavior, the following video, placed in proper context at a planned vigil for George Floyd in Brooklyn, de Blasio received a less than warm welcome. He stepped out and they were booed. This is the same mayor who he steps out to give a speech in front of police and they turn their backs on him because he throws the cops under the bus at every chance he gets. Reverend Kevin McCall, the organizer who introduced the mayor, had to repeat, again, we said respect. Say it with me, respect. He repeated respect several more times. Probably a wise decision. That de Blasio's wife, Shirlane McCrae, spoke first. At his Friday press conference, the mayor responded to calls for him to resign. He reminded the reporters that a majority of New Yorkers elected and re-elected him and that, quote, critics are going to be critics, end quote. He defiantly said he's not going anywhere. Governor Cuomo has also directly blamed the mayor for the city's chaos, which, at the end of the day, it really is him. Andrew Cuomo has spoken out and said that de Blasio has 38,000 police officers at his disposal, and that he should be using them to quell the riots. And everyone is, freaking out about, Trump saying that we should use the military according to the Insurgent Act of 1807. Oh my gosh, you can't send the military in. Why not? George W. Bush wanted to use the Insurgency Act to send in troops to lend support after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. George H.W. Bush used the Marine Corps to quell riots in Los Angeles after the Rodney King verdict. It's been used over and over again throughout our history back to 1807. Was it in the 1950s after Brown versus Board of Education and essentially the Supreme Court ordering the desegregation of all schools, the governor of Arkansas refused to desegregate Central High School in Little Rock. So the 101st Infantry Division, or the 101st, actually they were the airborne at that point but anyways, I digress. The 101st Airborne was sent in to hold back rioters and people screaming crazy racist epithets at 9 students walking into Central High School. You had federal troops being used to enforce civil rights after the Civil War was over during Reconstruction because, still before Republicans began starting to sweep through the South, there's still a lot of Democrat-controlled states and cities. Federal troops had to go in and to tell the state government, no, you are going to observe these because, it's our job to enforce the Bill of Rights. And, if the military's going in, to stop these riots, I don't have a problem with that. However, if they are being used to stop protesters who are out there making lots of noise, holding up signs, and advocating for change, if they're the ones who start being attacked by National Guard, I do have a problem with that because there is no reason for that. find the people who are, being the muckrakers, the agents provocateur, and, find them in the crowd and deal with them. Deal with the crazy Antifa idiots, those middle class, or more likely upper middle class, white liberal college kids who think they know everything, and because they are so far in the tank for communism, socialism, everything right of them, even if it's just a half pace to the right, everything to the right of them is fascist. So now they have to go out and riot and tear everything up and proclaim to be something they're not. Anarcho-communists. We believe in anarchy, no government whatsoever. But everyone should no one should have property. The means of production belong to everyone. The fruits of the production belongs to everyone. And we should all just take according to our need, without realizing that there will be people who take more, put in less, and you have to have a government who's going to go, no. You, takers, the ones who, sponge off everyone else but don't contribute anything, yeah, you're going to the gulags and you're going to make big rocks into little rocks. They always seem to forget that fact. You have to have a strong ruling fist to really clamp down on the throats of those who would not want to work for the betterment of their communist society. A strong man, almost like a Mussolini or a Hitler or a Stalin, a Pol Pot, a Mao, someone who's more than willing to sacrifice somebody else's life for the greater good. But, it be what it be. And we'll go on one last little tangent here before I call tonight. So, The Lancet is a British medical journal, very prestigious. Well, they've had to come out and they've had to retract an article that was published that hydroxychloroquine kills people. But it turns out this study, this 96,000 case observational study on people with hydroxychloroquine suddenly developing heart conditions and dying. Yeah, it turns out that it was faked.
No, you look like an idiot.
Yeah, how many researchers saw that study and goes, dang it. Just when we thought we were going to see some promise, they're coming out saying it's killing people. Son of a gun. Now we're going to have to cancel it. We have to find something else. Well, I mean, the study was done pretty much just to spite Donald Trump and his, I've heard about hydroxychloroquine. If you're sick, you should talk to your doctor, maybe give it a try. Well, it turns out that, this study was pushing a fake narrative. It's real fake news. I know it's an oxymoron. Real fake news. As opposed to fake real news. But, and then, of course, once I heard that this study that had been published in the Lancet was fraudulent story, I just couldn't help but think, there was a time when a doctor conducted unscrupulous, unethical, nay, illegal medical studies on children without their knowledge, without their parents' knowledge or permission, And he came to the false conclusion that the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, the MMR, is strongly linked to causing autism. Yeah, well, it turns out, that study wasn't real either. In fact, that doctor lost his medical license and can no longer be a doctor. He can no longer perform medicine. That's a really weird thing to say, to perform medicine. But I believe it's grammatically correct. If I'm not, well, I don't care. But the study linking MMR to autism, that for the past 20 years has had celebrities of all stripes coming out and all these vaccinations are causing the autism. Oh my God. Yeah, where was it published? It was published in The Lancet.
No, you look like an idiot.
So, here you have this prestigious journal. They got duped once, and okay, so maybe they've had some leadership changes and changes in the editorial staff from years ago. But you would think maybe a medical journal would keep track of its own failures. Like maybe tack them on a wall in the lead in the managing editor's office as a reminder that if we don't actually pay attention to what's coming across the desk, where you can print something very, very horribly, tragically wrong. You would think that. But I guess it turns out the Lancet doesn't give two craps because, like I said, you wait 20 years, come back, and, this study proves an American politician that we don't like is wrong. We're going to run it, and we're going to make him look like a fool. And then some of the authors come out and, about that article. It's totally fake. Wait. What was that? It's totally fake. I'm sorry. I believe you said that research article that you gave us to publish and that we ran and we got all this attention for. Did you just say it was totally fake? Yeah, I did. That should be some heartburn at the Lancet. I mean, they couldn't look and see if it was peer-reviewed before they published it. They couldn't look and see that, is it possible that any of these researchers have a given political bent? I mean, we're not asking them to, undergo a top secret security clearance investigation, but can we not look and see maybe if they're trying to push a narrative that might not be true? I know it's asking a lot that, and I will give the Lancet props for coming out and publicly saying, yeah, we may have screwed the pooch on that one. Our bad. I give them mad props for admitting to it. Pardon me. But what's the old saying? A half ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You would think they would do a better job at checking the stuff that's coming across their desk instead of just running with it. Well, that's going to wrap up the show tonight. Those of you who stuck with me through the live cast, I understand. it was hard to listen to because it's cutting in and out. Again, that's an internet thing. I really cannot help that. But thank you, those who stuck with me. I appreciate it. But that's the reason why I record it, and I'm checking again. Yes, it is still recording. It didn't quit on me this week. Yeah. It's always the small victories. Again, that's the reason why I do it on podcast. And then again, this live show did start as a podcast, so good on you if you're still subscribed. If you're listening to this, if Apple is your preferred podcast listening OS of choice, I ask that you do 4 things on Apple Podcasts. First of all, subscribe. Then you get it every week when I publish the new episode. Second of all, leave a 5-star rating. The more 5-star ratings you leave behind, it affects the algorithm to help find more wonderful, wonderful, absolutely amazing people like yourselves. And then, just to pique their curiosity, once they see that, oh, if you like this podcast, you may enjoy this one. And they click on, and they read the reviews, and, the majority of people seem to really like this show, except for that one guy who thinks that he talks about himself way too much and that he's massively uninformed. Yeah, I know. There's always that one guy in the crowd. What can you do? And then, once you have gone through steps 1 through 3, you've subscribed, you've rated it, you've left a nice review. Last step, share it. Share the link on social media. Send the link directly to a friend who you think will enjoy this show. Or, if you want to aggravate the crap out of somebody because they're flaming liberal leftist, and you just feel like you want to get under their skin, use me as a tool. Send my show directly to your crazy liberal leftist friend just to aggravate them. You don't even have to tell me. I'll just sense it like a disturbance in the force, and it'll make me feel so good. I mean, these are the little things I live for. And also, again, I ran the plug for it during the break there, about halfway through. Go to the website, www.relentlessdaring.com. There you can stream back episodes of the podcast, or you can go to the merch shop. Again, if you go to the merch shop, we have hats again. I am currently wearing the green and navy trucker cap with the subdued Relentless Daring flag embroidered onto it. It's not just printed, it's actually embroidered on the hats. Again, all proceeds from the merch shop, or if you choose to make a donation, at the top of the page you will see the donate button through PayPal. You can set up a one-time payment, like, hey, I like what you're doing, I'm going to give you $20. Or you can set up a recurring donation. Hey, I really, really like what you're doing, and I want to help keep this show on the air. You set that recurring payment. All of this goes into making the show better for you, or for helping me do a more professional sounding show. As a matter of fact, through contributions received from you, the listeners, I ordered a new set of headphones that are specifically for doing this podcast. They're really nice in-ear monitors. That way, because right now, I'm not going to lie, I have a beat-up pair of Sony headphones where one of the headphones isn't even on my head. So I'm only listening to you on one side of my head right now, and it's not throwing me off. As LW Sap saying, I'm cutting out really bad. I understand I'm cutting out really bad. My internet here in the middle of the nowhere is crappy. But fortunately, the podcast will be going up later this evening, early in the morning, so it will be available. But thank you for at least trying to stick with me. Again, like I said, donations and merch sales, it all goes towards the podcast, keeping it on the air, buying equipment that helps me do a better show, be more professional sounding, even though the audio is cutting out on the live stream. I'm sorry. Again, thank you all for listening. It's love getting out here and being able to do this every weekend. And as always, stay relentless.